like to show you in this demo is I would like to show you how to create a slab bowl with a slab wall and a slab bottom and even a little a foot ring. All of these are done with textured slabs, but yet the interior is nice and smooth. What we're going to start off with is a template for circle bottom and a template for the sides. And it should be the same length. You know that it's the right length if you use the string method. If you cut your circle first, what you do is you take a piece of string and you start it in a particular spot. Usually I would mark that spot with a pencil or something. And then I walk that string around the edge with my fingers, holding it just in place. When you get all the way back to that original spot, you will be able to see how long your side needs to be. Well, you get the idea. When I come around and I meet that original spot and I lengthen that out, I know that's the length that my side should be. So that's how I came up with the template patterns. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll out both the bottom and the side. I have my clay wedged up here, and I'm going to use the red sticks as a guide, but I'm not really going to go all the way down to the red sticks. I like to stay a little bit above the red sticks as I'm rolling because you are going to be texturing this, so you want to add a little extra kind of thickness layer as a cushion so when you texture it, it doesn't get too thin. Alright, so I am going to concentrate on making this very, very even though. If I feel like I have a bump, I want to get rid of the bump. Okay, and I'm still a little bit above the red sticks, which is good because eventually after I texture it, it's going to get down to the level of the red sticks. So in this case, I'm just going to use the same pattern that I did on the first one. I'm just going to run my little wheeled roller, texture roller across this, and I'm going to create just a really neat polka dot texture on there. Next, after I have it textured, then I'm going to trim this, and just put my template on there, and then I use my needle tool to trim it away. Okay, now this extra clay, instead of putting it back in the bag as is, if you squirt it down a little bit, the next person that comes along can easily wedge that up, and that will have absorbed some of the moisture that it lost onto the table. Next, I'm going to do the long piece. Now the long piece only needs to be long in one direction. So what I'm going to start off by doing is taking a hunk of clay and kind of stretching it. I need to have it wide enough to fit, but more than anything, I have to concentrate on making sure that it's long enough. So I start off originally by kind of throwing it out. That helps. And then let me just move this out of the way. Now I'm going to use my rolling pin, and I will get it down to the rest of the thickness that I need. Again, a little bit above these sticks. Okay, now I'm down to my thickness that I need, and I am going to rib this. It's very possible I may have forgotten to rib that circle one. If I forgot to rib that circle one, I really should have done it because anytime I work with slabs, I always try to rib both sides before I build with it. The ribbing action really helps. It smooths the clay, but more than anything, it actually will make the clay a little bit stronger because it's compressing the particles. Now for this one, I'll use the same design. I'll use my curly design. If you feel that your clay is perhaps a little bit on the sticky side, you can always use a little bit of cornstarch. The cornstarch is great when you have an object that you're going to texture it with and you're afraid it might get stuck. So I'm just going to run this along. Do a couple of them here. There we go. Now I'll pick it up again. Now I'm going to just trim that out to fit. Alrighty, now I have both of the pieces cut. I'm ready to start the assembly process. When I begin to assemble, I'm going to flip texture side down, and I'm going to score the top outer edge. So I'm going to overscore a little bit because I'm going to put a coil in there, and I do want a little bit more thickness in there. Then I'm going to score the bottom edge of the wall, and I'm going to do two things right here on these ends. I'm going to create a bevel, so I'm going to trim a little bit of each end so it's at an angle. Now, you want them to be at the same angle, so when it comes around and it touches itself, it's going to overlap. I'm going to score both of those. Now let's go ahead and prep my scoring. Okay, I've now slipped around the outer edge, and I have scored the bottom edge of this wall. As this clay comes around and it wraps around on itself, you can see that by having a bevel there, it will wrap really nicely on top of itself. If it was just a butt end like that, it does not wrap as nicely. So to have it angled like that, it overlaps and it's a much better fit. Now I'm going to take my wall and just position it on there a little bit more precisely so it's not hanging off in any areas. Okay, so there we go. That's the wall is positioned on there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll some coils so I can put a coil in the base. Now the coils don't have to be particularly pretty. This is rather fast. I am going to score the coil. I know that there's already slip in there, so I'm going to position the coil down in the bottom. Okay, so there's my coil laying in the bottom. Now, I'm going to blend it. I like to use the little wooden knife end. I like that nice rounded end. You can use whatever you want. Back of your finger, the pointy tool that looks like a pencil, whatever you like. Okay, so now what I have is I have the coil blended on the inside. I can now take a rib, small baby rib, and I can get in there and blend it a little bit more. Okay, now for this first day, I can do one more thing. Let's look at the bowl again, okay? I'm going to add a little decorative ring up here on the top to kind of strengthen the rim and make it look tidy when it's leather hard, and I'm also going to add the foot ring later when it's leather hard. But what I can do right now is I'm going to arch the bottom. So by holding this in one hand, okay, I can now take my opposite hand and I can push this out. So I'm pushing right up against the wall, and then I'll arch it a little bit more in the center. If you're planning on pushing this, you definitely want to do it while it's plastic. And I think that a lot of times that rounded bottom just adds a really nice element. Now before I allow it to dry at all, I am going to take the wall. I'm going to make sure it's nice and tidy and straight and round. I don't want it to be irregular with corners or anything. And then I am going to set the board on top and then flip. Okay, and then I'm going to let it get leather hard. I could do this by leaving it uncovered for one night in a damp cabinet, or I could put a towel over it if I want to just maybe protect it just a little bit more. I could put a towel over it and let it dry some. When it's leather hard, I'll come back in here and do the foot ring and the coil. Okay, for doing the foot ring and the coil on this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by rolling a coil for the foot ring. Okay, and I want to get it about the size that I would like it to be. Make sure that that coil is rather even looking. And then I'm going to just flatten this out a little bit. I'm going to use a pony roller to flatten this just a wee bit more. And then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to add a little bit of texture. Okay, if my edges are already relatively even, alright, so to complete this foot ring, I'm just trimming off a little bit more on that end so it's a nice proportional foot. I'm going to score and I'm going to slip those edges together. So once I get this attached together side to side, I do want to go ahead and score the edge where it's going to fasten to the bowl. So if it sits like so, I'm going to mark where it's going to go on the bowl. There we go. And then I'm going to score this entire edge rather vigorously. And I'm also going to score this outer part. I'm going to slip. And we're going to kind of push those together. I'm going to put another small coil on the inside to help blend that. Okay, and now I have it blended on there. It will definitely need to be cleaned. Make sure that I didn't push that in at all.